All right. Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Coffee Table Reviews, your go-to podcast for everything Indian cinema and mainly Bollywood. And I'm your host Aniket. With me is Ashwath.
Hey, Aniket. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, so we're serving up a special treat today. It's the end of the year. Just like we do at work, we review the year's work, and our primary work is watching movies. So we have to do a good job at reviewing our movies and, selecting the top five. So that's what we are thinking of doing today, just look at all the movies, think about the best ones that connected with us, that gave us a good time. It was, I think, a mixed year. There were a few very good ones, a few blockbusters. There were a few critically acclaimed movies. So it's been a very interesting year, I would say. But yeah, we'll dive more into all of those things as we progress with the podcast. Before we get started on the year in review, based on what we had promised last time, we talked about Jigra. We were wondering why it didn't do well. Both of us hadn't watched the movie. So we got a chance to watch that movie as it came out on Netflix. Buckingham Murders came out on Netflix as well. So we quickly wanted to touch upon those movies before we get started with the top five movies. So Ashwath, I'm guessing you got a chance to watch both of those movies. What was your take on them?
I think thanks once again for recommending me to watch specifically Buckingham Murders because Hansal Mehta, yes, I do like his kind of movie making or even his web series that he makes. I think quite intriguing, but it was not in my watch list to be honest. Like when it was announced. Speaking about both Jigra and Buckingham Murders, let me split. I think different reasons why both those movies didn't do well. For me,
Mm-hmm.
Jigra did not work. Three reasons. One, it did not have that slickness of what a Prison Break movie should have. It
Right.
still got itself embroiled with unnecessary emotions. Like it's needed when you're showing like a story between a brother and you need that, but it should not overpower your overall movie, which is supposed to be very slick on editing, very
Right.
fast paced,
Yes.
very intelligent for the viewer. Like you should make the viewers feel that the movie makers are more intelligent than you, like they know a bit more things than
Right.
you, but
Right.
it shouldn't end up being it shouldn't end up being predictable. Now with Jigra, it did have those elements what every kind of a prison break movie has, like a villain who's outright bad, supporting character like Manoj Pava who's adding that zing to the movie, and it also has like good supporting cast who are kind of interesting set of folks who bring in some different characters on the screen. But what was missing was that main character itself to hold on, which you hold on to, which you can relate to some extent as a human, as a person, and you can say yes, like that person did do something beyond the ordinary which we either expected or not expected, like we saw in Kahani, right?
Right.
The character to stay with you at the end of it and not really, okay, they just made this character up and the actor
Right.
wanted to do something, so this character was like constructed artificially without really fleshing it out. So this was
Mm.
my take on Jigra. It failed because people have seen so many good prison breaks content all around.
Mm-hmm.
Comparisons are drawn, and anything which is not where it lacks, I think, is bound to fail. And specifically
Mm-hmm.
when you're looking at a movie like this, which is supposed to be high on content.
Right. 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 That's true.
On Buckingham Murders, I loved the movie. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
a great movie, amazing performances, specifically Kareena Kapoor. I think, like, I've not been a fan of her acting prowess, to be honest, till date. Like, I
Hmm.
liked her acting, but it was not like I really said, oh, wow, it's Kareena Kapoor giving this performance, or I'm looking forward
Okay.
to a Kareena Kapoor performance. But
Mm-hmm.
this movie made me really think, okay, wow, like, she's nailed that role. Like, every scene
Right.
she's in, every emotion
Yeah.
she portrays, be it
Yeah.
action, be it remembering her grief, like her
Yeah.
grieving,
Yeah.
uh, talking it out to her seniors or giving it back or even investigating. I think she's
Yeah.
done a fabulous role. I think hats off. And overall, the
True.
film was compact, no unnecessary stuff at all.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why
Mm-hmm.
it failed, right? My theory upon it, maybe people may disagree. I think what does a movie talk about? It talks about an issue that's very prevalent in this part of the world where I stay. I don't know
Yeah.
probably how prevalent it is beyond this. Like, say in a country like India, how
Right.
prevalent is an issue like that people can stand up and notice it, right?
Right.
Like, when have we in India had seen an issue like that becoming a major talk of the town? Like here, it talks about
Right.
two communities in a place like High Wycombe where
Mm-hmm.
they are at war and there's drug menace, etc. Like these topics, how well are they relatable to your major market, which is India?
Right.
Not very sure how people may relate to it when you're showing
Yeah.
this topic. I could
Hmm.
relate to it because I stay here and I understand
Right.
what they try to show through dynamics, why the police is kind of scared to kind of take any big step when it's in such a situation. But coming to the movie on its own, it had a very tight script, crisply
Yeah.
edited, strong performances. I think it was a perfect candidate for direct to OTT release. I think they would have
Yeah.
that's what my feel. Nothing bad with the movie. It failed purely
Right.
because the audience was a very different audience it was catering to, and it was
Right.
supposed to be a direct to OTT.
That's true. No, and I think more than 70% of the movie is in English, the original version of it. So I don't know how I've not heard a lot of conversations of it being a dud. Unlike Jigra, everyone's been analyzing why Jigra was a flop. It was tailored for a theatrical release and yet it flopped. It had all the elements. They tried to fit all the elements for a big theater release. While with Buckingham Murders, I'm not sure if they really wanted to get like a box office success out of it. I think they made money out of the or selling it to Netflix, and I think it premiered at a few film festivals as well. But yeah, I mean, the accolades and the reviews are pretty good, whoever has watched it. It's just that it's not for the masses, as you said it. And I think I totally agree. I've posted reviews of both Jigra and Buckingham Murders on my Instagram handle, and I love the movie as well. I watched it in one of the few people who watched it in the theater, actually. But yeah, both me and Pooja really liked it. We both are fans of Kareena Kapoor and her acting, the range that she has, and she was like given a baby to to bring up and nurture and make it her own, and she has done an incredible job at that. And she's been very candid about it in her interviews as well, that she modeled this character based on Kate Winslet's character in Mayor of Easttown, and you can see those similarities. She's just,
Yep.
by just accepting that and talking about it openly, she is, everyone who's going to make a comparison will be like, okay, yeah, she's accepted. It's an inspiration from that, and she's done a terrific job. I think the story is also very tight knit, and they've casted local actors who have that accent when they speak English or Hindi. So yeah, so I loved it as well, and totally agree with you on Jigra. It was a misfire for sure. Yeah, yeah. All right. So going into the main topic rather, is 2024 year in review. So how happy were you with the year 2024 when it comes to movies, more specifically Bollywood movies and then even regional cinema? So how do you think the year panned out?
I think a Bollywood movie is not great. I really wished in the places where we could do, or rather, some with the amount of resources that Bollywood has, it could make far more technically sound movies than what it makes, and I think that's what I feel bad about. And when I say technically, in terms of filmmaking as well as in terms of film writing, like story writing as well, with
Yeah,
an amount of resources, connections, you have talent, you have, I think Bollywood could do
yeah,
so much more, and we
right.
do see those flashes, but it's so less. I think
Hmm.
that's my issue with Bollywood. And
Hmm.
yes, there were flashes of brilliance, but it wasn't that okay. You kept us glued with continuous like big good content and through the year. Overall, great, because what 2024 really showed us was mediocre is outright rejected.
Yeah.
You can't go to an audience and say, kind of made this movie not very confident, but watch it. I think,
Hmm.
example, Singham Returns. I think you could see that through the pre-release interviews with Rohit Shetty and all. I think they were purely trying to say, okay, we are going to play with like we are giving what the audience wants. It
Hmm.
may be mediocre, but this is what audience wants, and I think it's high time we understand that audience will not take up something mediocre. They will reject it single-handedly. There may be some cases it may work, like very few cases it may work, but it's not that it's a mantra that will succeed when you put it on paper always.
Hmm.
Second is what we learned is content doesn't need stars, right? If your
Hmm.
content is good, all you need are good performers who will do justice to that role.
Right.
It doesn't need big names to serve you. It doesn't need a big name to make that movie good. All it
Hmm.
needs is good content with good performance who can really understand the nuance of that role and do it. Like I was mighty impressed with Agni, and I think no big names performance or like very character oriented star cast. So there was no hero. I think what I'm coming down to say is the concept of hero. I think it's kind of, I don't know how it's playing out in my, at least for me, it's kind of diminishing where people want to see good characters, fleshed out characters. They may have shades of gray. They may be all moral. They may not be all morally good. but they're there to tell you, become a part of a story, right?
Right.
And this is what 2024 really, in my view, is it kind of started showing people you can't have either everything can't be bad, like it can't be good. It needs to be what story you're looking to tell, how you're looking to tell it. If it's good, people accept it. The mediums may be different, but people may accept or reject based on how good your content is. This is how I see 2024.
Right. Nice. I think that's a good overview, and I kind of agree with most of what you said. But although with Singham, again, my take is that I thought it worked, and the box office numbers are there that it worked. So of course, the movie was, pretty mediocre. I went with that expectation to the theater when I watched it, and I just had a good time just with that expectation. The expectation was so low, and I knew that there were going to be 100 entries that, it was just like I was five drinks down and I just was watching the movie, it was equivalent to that. And I guess the audience, is also calibrating their expectations that way, and they're going into the theaters and they need to have a good time. And Bollywood or Hindi movies have always been that go-to medium. So, they are probably still okay with it. But will it be sustainable with such high good content that is available otherwise is a good question. And we've seen some big movies like even Jigra, which flopped, and people have outright rejected it if they are not good. So, like Bade Mia Chote Mia, for that matter, was a
Yep.
pretty big budget movie. It was an
Yep.
action movie, was supposedly going to be a great theatrical release. It bombed at the box office, right? So you can't just bank on stars and put up something and then expect it to work. So definitely, 2024 has taught us that. But overall, I was just looking at the mix, the mix of movies that came in 2024, at least from a Hindi movie perspective. So we had a few blockbusters, starting with Fighter. Again, a movie that was the storyline wasn't great. The action was
Right.
amazing. It could did a lot of money, but it could have done much more
Much more.
after War and Pathan from Siddharth Anand, but it fell short of that. Shaitan was an unexpected hit. I think it
Yep.
garnered more than 180 crores, which was amazing, that we with
Very different
uh,
genre as well. Like,
yeah, yeah. I loved the movie except for the last half an hour, maybe, or
yes.
20 minutes. I was so intrigued, but I was like, oh man, you
And
almost had it, kind
I
of
think
a.
just before you go, I think it's a good lesson why when you kind of do a remake, try not to adapt it too much. Because I've seen the Gujarati movie, it's
Uh-huh.
scary till the last minute.
Really? Okay, okay, okay. So yeah, we had that unexpected hit though, and then there was Kalki, which we've talked about quite a lot. Stree 2, the monster hit, and then we had Bhool Bhulaiya 3, and
Three.
then Singham again. And now we have Pushpa 2, which is creating all sorts of havoc on in the box office and all sorts of controversies as well. And then there were critically acclaimed movies like Lapata Ladies, India's Oscar nomination, as well as All We Imagine as Light, which won the Grand Prix at Cannes after 1994, the first
Yep.
movie that was premiered there. So it's topping all of the best movie
Yes.
recommendations in the Western media
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
So I'm waiting to watch it. It's there in New York. I should go and watch it before it goes away. But apart from that, we had technology-based movies with Teri Baaton Mein Uljha Jiya, and
Yes.
then Control, which was an AI-based
Yes.
movie. We had the usual political based movies as well. We had horror comedies, the Formula movies, which were doing well. Then we had some out and out comedies, which were pretty pathetic, like Bad News.
Yes.
So I think it was a mixed
And
bag.
Vicky
Some,
Vidya ka wo wala video. I
oh
mean,
my God. Yeah. After
uh,
you put up that story on Instagram, I was like, I made a good decision of
yeah,
not
like
watching it for sure. Yes.
I was
So
yawning
absolutely.
through the being in a
Yes.
comedy movie with so many things like yawning. Like,
Right, exactly. So I was like, it was a mixed bag, but as you pointed out, there was a lot of mediocrity in the Hindi movie content. There were a few that stood out. Agni was a great watch. Thanks for that recommendation. I absolutely loved the movie as well, and such a fresh take and fresh concept.
yeah,
And the actors were just phenomenal. The chemistry between Pratik Gandhi and Vivendu, we saw that in Madgaon
yes,
Express, and now
yes,
they've replicated it. Pratik Gandhi is
yeah.
hats off to
Like,
that guy.
so not to sideline, but watch the Hollywood Reporter roundtable
Yeah, I've watched
and
it.
yeah,
Yes,
Pratik Gandhi over there as well. You could show him why he's a
yes,
different class. Like,
yes. And the dialogue that caught my attention was when they were talking about, do you take acting for granted or you get tired from acting? And Pratik Gandhi says, I've given acting all my love for the first time, I'm getting a
Getting it
reciprocation
back.
of love. I am not going to be
Not
tired with it. I
tired.
am, that was so humble and, so genuine of him to say that. So for sure, that was a great episode with Anupama Chopra, the Actors Roundtable. So yeah, it was a mixed bag, and but regional cinema, as always, delivered, and we had up to our heart's content good movies that we could watch on OTT platforms and have a good time watching them. So yeah, it was a pretty good mixed bag, I think.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
All right, without further ado, let's get into our favorite movies of 2024. Let's start with some honorable mentions that didn't make it to our top five before we get into the best ones, right? So that, we talk about them, we let's acknowledge that they have been made, but there were some better ones that made it into the top five. So you can go first.
Yeah, I think few honorable mentions. One, definitely Madgaon Express. I loved watching it and the way it was made, the
Hmm.
comedy part of it. I loved
Right.
the characters. I loved Madgaon Express. Agni, again, honorable mention. Control. Um,
Hmm.
uh, Anveshipam Kandetam of Tovino Thomas. I think I loved it. Yep. Honorable mentions. I think all of them had something working for them. Like, for
Right.
example, Control had a fresh view of how technology is impacting our lives. And it could really shake you at one point if you're not really been up to date with what's happening with the whole AI world. So, and I think the
Yeah.
movie did that. I made Supriya, my parents watch it and they were like, "Oh wow, like is this possible?"
Yeah.
Like very much, it's on the table.
Yeah.
Similarly, with Agni and Madgaon Express, lovely story writing. The way the characters were built, I think that's what worked for them. On Anveshipam Kandetham, I think what I loved part is even though the movie gets predictable in the second half, just the performance of Tovino Thomas, him being there and showing those different shades of remorse, regret, sense of achievement. That's what you. That's what that's what a performance is like, right? I remember watching, looking at an interview from Denzel Washington after he'd done Philadelphia. It's an old interview where he says that uh, I just had to spend some time to show what all emotions I had to show when I was in the court scene,
Hmm.
right? When he was doing the court scenes for Philadelphia, like I had to show a variety of emotions. And for me, I had to practice each of those emotions before actually coming to the sets. How am I going to show that on my face? And I think for me, that's what Tovino Thomas' performance did in the movie
Hmm.
Anveshka Kandetam. So that's why these are my honorable mentions. But they could have gotten into my top five, and even for that matter, Buckingham Murders. But
Right.
they didn't.
Nice, nice. No, I think I agree with all of them. Wonderful movies. Anveshipin was definitely one of my favorites, which I recommended to a lot of my friends as well. From Agni, as I mentioned, it was a great watch. We as a family enjoyed it. For me, apart from the ones that you mentioned, I think Bhakshak was a very good movie. I loved the movie. It left a great impression on me. And Bhumi Pednekar has done an amazing job. So have all the supporting actors, especially the negative ones that are played by different actors.
Mhm.
Amazing script, very tight and no nonsense, um, and a very good social message. The types that were pretty common. I don't know why they aren't making a lot of these off late. The 90s and 2000s were filled with those. The Om Puris and Prakash Jha were experts at that. But I'm seeing that it's drying up for some reason. So it was very refreshing to see this movie that makes you think and just like uh, feel frustrated about the system and how what people go through. So I think Bhakshak definitely one of the good candidates to be in top five. Avesham
Mhm.
was a fun ride by Fafa. Again, he just brings joy, to our experience of watching movie, and especially since it's based in Bangalore and he speaks a bit of Kannada in it, it was
Yeah.
so much fun to watch it. And that guy is, we don't have to
Yeah.
talk
Probably it's
anything
like
about him. The
as
world
good
knows
or
about him.
brilliant kind of
Yeah,
performance.
exactly. It was like tailor-made. This is like, okay, this is a canvas, just paint your picture, And then I loved Merry Christmas as well. It came out earlier in the year. The
Yep.
whole plot, Sri Ram Raghavan, along with the very unthinkable cast of Vijay
It's
Sethupathi and Katrina
yeah,
Kaif, right?
yes,
And their chemistry is so good. I
yes.
didn't expect that. And the story is as typical Sri Ram Raghavan,
I'm going-
movie
yeah.
where there are so many twists and turns, and then you're like, okay, you go with that, so many of those moments. So I think that was a good watch. Among the blockbusters, I think only Stree 2 was even worth a mention.
Mm.
Apart from that, none of them are really even content wise nowhere there, in the top five. So that's the only other mention that I would make.
Yeah, no, no,
All
fully
right.
agree. I think Merry Christmas. That the date was. I remember when it was announced. I'm like, okay, what is Sriram Raghavan trying to do? But then when I watched it, I'm like, wow, like they're just walking
Right.
to each other, having this conversation. It's like, wow, like it's
Yeah.
very fresh to see them talk to each other.
And there is so much detail in each scene that you need to be attentive because Sri Ram Raghavan will go back to that scene and
Yes,
he'll make you look like a fool for not having observed that.
yes,
So when I was watching it, I was like all focused, and yet I
yes.
missed a few things, and I'm like, oh, that was shown, and how did I not catch that?
Yeah,
So
the Sriram
brilliance of
Raghavan.
Sri Ram Raghavan was a full display on that. Not his best work, but it was a fun
It
watch for
was a
sure.
fun ride.
Yes, yeah. All right, so that were the honorable mentions. So let's get straight to it. Let's do one by one, starting 5 to 1. So we'll go with number 5 on your list.
Number five on my list is Golem.
Hmm.
Um, After a good festive run last year, it released finally in Jan this year. I've
Mm-hmm.
spoken about it in our in our previous podcast where it's a one-day story. A murder is being investigated. Definitely fits into my top five, primarily to show that how you could have a very good story and good performances hooked on till the last minute. Again, you
Mm-hmm.
don't need the masala for the film to work.
Right.
All you need
Mm-hmm.
is a very simple story. You don't even need to
Right.
complicate the story. You need to keep it very simple. You don't need high production cost. You need to be there. You
Yeah.
don't need to go through any special screenplay. All you need to do is do the basics. I mean, that's why it's my top five. It does all the basics right, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why Golem is there. And although there are some reservations that the lead actor or the person who plays the inspector could have been had more expressions because he looks like a pretty much like
A gym
someone,
instructor.
yeah, someone I was reading somewhere and so oh, if there's a remake in Hindi they should cast John Abraham in it, so he could do with some more expressions. But apart from that, the way the rest of the star cast complemented, the way they take the story around and they bring it to a conclusion, Golem definitely, like, after a long period of time, I was waiting for, like, the unpredictability kept lingering for a long period of time, even till they brought it to a conclusion. I was like, okay, maybe there is something else that will come out. So this is why Golem comes into the list in my top five. How about yours? Which one is your top five?
So for me at number 5 is Maharaja, the Tamil movie. Vijay Sethupathi is in the lead. It was a very interesting watch. So I started watching this and Pooja was doing some work on her laptop and I started watching it. And because of the mixed timelines that it has, she couldn't get a thing. It was not a movie that you could like do it on a second screen. And she was like, "What is this movie even about? Why are you watching it?" And for half of it, that is what was her reaction. And I hadn't read anything about it. I just watched it for Vijay Sethupathi, and I did not pay a lot of attention to his hairstyles and the color of his hair. There was one aging part, and then there was a
Yes.
young part. So I was super confused till halftime. And I was like, let me just finish it. Everyone's talking about it. And by the time we got that, okay, there are these two timelines, and it's not really what it is about, it is something else. That's
Yes.
when Pooja closed her laptop. Both of us were glued to the TV. We were full focused, and boy, wasn't it a good ride? So I think that is definitely my is in my top five, and that's number 5 for me.
Yeah. No, I think I'll continue that because that's my number four, and I'll tell you
Okay.
why I loved that movie is
Uh-huh.
when you start watching the movie, I had like a big doubt saying that, okay, they're trying to do something like a Nolan-esque feature where you're running non-linear things
Yeah,
and
yeah,
in most cases, when you try to kind of do these non-linear things, mixed timelines, etc., it leads to a failure which is beyond redemption because
yeah.
then you're not able to send out the actual story what you would want to tell. right?
Right.
But with
Hmm.
Maharaja, I think once, as you rightly said, right, once the second half chips in, those timelines are clear for you. You're like,
Yeah.
now the fun has started. And
Yeah.
specifically, in the beginning, it looks kind of stupid as well. Like, what is he trying to do? Is it like
Yeah.
one of those Tamil movies where, like, kuch bhi ho raha hai? He's like
I
breaking down a police
probably,
station, or
or
like,
it's an art movie where the bucket represents something, where it is
exactly,
larger.
exactly, like,
Yeah, metaphorical. Yeah.
metaphorically, because I remember Adya watched it for the first 10 minutes before she
Uh-huh.
slept off. She was with us, like, okay, you watched till you're asleep. And all she remembers now when she sees Vijay Sethupathi is that he had a dustbin which was named Lakshmi, right? And
Exactly.
for me, it's like great way because at least people will remember that.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
way they end it, like with the introducing the character of Anurag Kashyap, wow. I mean, he should
Yeah.
just do more of this, the way
Hmm.
they do it. And then the second half, when they the climax and the anti-climax, where they show that okay, there was a policeman involved who was part of it, and the anti-climax, his daughter hadn't died. Like so,
Yeah.
of it were like
Exactly.
super. So
Yeah.
Maharaja on its own, uh, I think I was reading somewhere that suddenly there are like a lot of fans in the US for Maharaja. Like people want after its OTT release, people wanted it to release in the theaters as well because they wanted to go live that experience of watching Vijay
Right.
Sethupathi in the theater. But oh,
Right.
I know, man, like that guy is a different breed when it comes
For
to
sure.
pulling off these roles.
Absolutely. That is so true. For me, on number four comes Amar Singh Chamkila. I think that is the only Hindi movie that I have. So it's my most favorite Hindi movie of this year. Again, an unexpected watch. I was in the gym and I was like, okay, let me watch this movie for Imtiaz Ali's sake. Let's see if he's got his mojo back after a lot of misfires in the recent past. So I started watching it and I got hooked to it. The way the storytelling is just incredible. Taking the base scene where he shows the murder of Amar Singh Chamkila right at the outset, and
Yep.
everything is in flashback. So, and you know what is going to happen, but he still keeps you hooked to it. And I had no clue about this person. I'm from Karnataka. I had no clue about the existence of this person who created such havoc in Punjab with his music, with the kind of lyrics or whatever he had. So, what an interesting character. Who would think of making a movie? And okay, he was shot, but there have been so many people shot in that part of the country. Like it's still happening. Why did he pick that person? And with such quote unquote immoral lyrics and songs that he had, is not like the ideal candidate to make a biopic on. And yet he chose him as a subject, and he perfectly casted Diljit Dosanjh in it. Pariniti Chopra was such a
Perfect. It was so glad
pleasure
to
to
see her
watch.
after a long time.
Yes, and I'm like, okay, she has it in her, and the way she is, the mannerisms that she has picked up of the original character, and the way they have, juxtaposed uh, the original videos with the screen acting of those people. It was amazing, and A.R. Rahman's music
Music.
was so refreshing. It enhanced the feeling and the viewing experience. The support cast was amazing, and so were the animation that comes in the middle. Even that added to the script. I mean, how could he think about all of this? And again, the entire movie is in a flashback, and the way they have shown his relationship with each characters and how
Yeah.
his acceptance, how he struggles and then becomes a star, his acceptance, and then all the threats and eventually leading to his death. So I think it was
I think
the best Hindi movie for sure.
one point to note there, right? And this is what I was trying to say in my earlier, like when Imtiaz Ali made Amar Singh Chamkila, he did not want to paint a certain picture of him. He just
Yeah,
wanted to paint Chamkila as he is, right? And
yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's the story he wants to tell. He doesn't want to
yeah.
like glorify him, show him as a good man who was
Right.
shot, or show him something else. Like, no, he was not trying to do something for the character of Chamkila. He just wanted to put that character on screen, and that's what works, right? You would want to
Yep.
show that character as it is, raw, real, vulnerable.
Yes.
And I think this is what I
And
loved about Chamkila as
yeah.
well. He did not
Right.
go
Right.
to glorify that, oh, despite him doing all this, he was a good man, and
Yeah.
but still he was killed. No, that's not the message. Here's a man who grew up, this went through his height, this is what his life was. And yes, he was murdered. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the story I would
Right.
want to tell you. That was brilliant.
Yes, absolutely. And they have shown his side of the story, right? So my view in general in life is no one thinks they are a villain, right? Even the most, even if you ask, say, Hitler, who was there. In his mind, he was doing something that he thought was right, right? So that is an extreme example. But even in real life, you can talk about a corrupt police officer in India who, according to the society, is wrong. But if you go to him, he's like, everyone does it. I have needs. And they have shown these aspects in so many things. Just like that, in Amar Singh Chamkila, he said that people want this. This is what works. And
Exactly.
everyone does this in their homes. It's just that, and even the women enjoy it, the men enjoy it. I think it's just that no one talks about it, and society has imposed this thing, and that's why it's a taboo. But I'm
Yep.
just
Yep.
talking the facts and having fun with it. What's wrong
Yep.
with that,
And I think it makes us sorry. If it is bad, then people would have anyways rejected it, right? He would have
Yeah,
stopped doing it. Like
exactly.
that's
Yeah,
what he says. Like people will stop listening. I will stop singing.
right. So I think that was a
Right.
brilliant watch for me. I absolutely loved it, and happy that Imtiaz Ali was back with that movie. All right, so those were our number fours. What's yours at number three?
Number three is a very recent watch. Again, I'm kicking myself for watching it late. That is Atom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very simple story. 12 people in a theater group. One of them is a woman. She gets groped in a party. She doesn't know who it is, but then the conversation starts. Most of the movie is a conversation in a room, I think, borrowed from the famous
12
12
Angry
Angry
Men.
Men or
Mm-hmm.
even Ek Ruka Hua Faisla, which is then
Tesla.
Rabba. But all of those, or rather, what I loved in this is the message it sends back at the end of the movie. And
Mm-hmm.
each of the performances coming together and telling you their perspective, are showing the, what can I say, the weak side of humans, like when you're presented with multiple opportunities, how quickly you latch on to another, right?
Right.
It showed like human mind is that way, like as you rightly said, right? We often what we are weak at, we try to plug that gap in and say look out for better opportunities. And I think with Atom, this is what it beautifully captures through the conversations when they say, okay, who did it? Initially, everyone agrees on one, like, "Wait, this is what it, they even sign a paper saying we know exactly who did this. Then, when suddenly presented with an opportunity, all of them flip. And that's the human nature. You kind
Right.
of are tuned to doing a kind of flip flop and saying it might have been different because it suits your view, it suits your convenience. And add to it a brilliant social message, especially coming out from southern part of India, where, and I think if you've seen the movie in the end where the lead character, the actress herself, does a play on what's really happened, she ends up saying, okay, there was a team of 12 and I was groped by one, but when we investigated, I found out that I was groped by all 11 of them. And I think because they don't even show who did that, and just through the conversations she realizes how, like, they even at some point question her, did they do that? And I think
Right.
these are the kind of things which were very casual, I think, were shown in movies or what I've seen across in our society, but this movie really explores that part of the society. And if you look at those 11 people, they are not just 11 people, they represent 11 different people in the society, right?
Mm.
Someone who's always, the chief is always supposed to be upright. There's one upright person. There's one opportunist. There's one always person who's lingering on who's good, who's bad. There's one who's a very hardcore opportunist. So this is what our society is made of. So for me,
Yeah.
these 11 people resemble the society. When they're encountering a problem, how they often tend to forget a problem and focus on solving their own problem, not the problem. I think this what
Right.
for me the carried the message of the movie, and hats off Malayalam cinema for bringing out such a movie, because at the end of it, you sit back and you're shaken, like, okay, what
Mm.
the hell was it, and how come
Right.
they're able to show such complex topics in such
Mm-hmm.
a straightforward way? And probably people, I don't understand Malayalam, I watched it on subtitles, but
Right.
especially for the folks who understand, I think it would have, my assumption is it would have hit them at altogether different level altogether. So
Right.
for me,
Mm.
Atom comes at number three, and watched it late, but glad I watched it.
Nice. Yeah. I've heard a lot about Autumn, honestly, and haven't got a chance to watch it yet, but definitely next on my list. Um, for me, number three, again, another Malayalam movie, Kishkinda Kandam, which comes at number three for me. Watched it recently, left a deep impression on me. I've reviewed this again on my Instagram handle. It inspires from the Ramayana tale of the same name, and they've taken elements from that, and have woven an amazing story, which starts with a simple thing like a missing gun, and then it uncovers a lot of things underneath as the movie progresses. And there is someone, it's within a family, but there is a new member who has come into that family and who's trying to, understand what are the secrets, what is really underneath the hood
Mhm.
within this family. And by the time she realizes what's happening and why is it happening, you just feel like whatever is happening is for the good, different perspectives. And this is the shades of gray that we you mentioned earlier, right? They have kept the characters as they are. They have not tried to portray them as, the good or bad, like black or white. They are not doing 100%, the morally the best, the most appropriate things, but they're doing what they have to at that point. So I think, the mystery, the way the screenplay is, and how they have inspired from mythology all make it a great watch for me.
No, no, I haven't watched it, heard a lot about it. I would need to, like, I tried. It's definitely not on. I think it's on Disney Plus over here.
Yeah, Hotstar, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why it's not been in my radar. But I think I'm trying to see how best I can get hold of the movie. I've
Yeah,
suddenly become a big fan of. I think Asif Ali is the
Asif
name.
Ali, yeah.
I think his movies always have this very different element in them. So I
Yeah,
think Kishkinda Kandam is on my
yes.
watch list the moment I know where in UK can I watch it.
I remember watching him was in Uyere, and man, I wanted to kill him in that movie, the he does in that movie. So I was honestly, he did that role so well that we were apprehensive to watch this movie just because of him. And then we were like, okay, no, we need to be there. He was just playing a character. So that's how convincing he is. So kudos to him on that.
Yes, yes, yes.
All right. So number two, what's number two on your list?
Yeah, now my Bollywood list begins. Being a hardcore Bollywood fan,
Uh-huh.
number two for me was Article 370.
Okay.
The reason being, one, the way it presented the existing facts so clearly on the table. I think
Mm-hmm.
even though not being in India, I do follow the Indian politics closely. History was my favorite subject and continues to be my favorite subject. I go back, read my most of my bookshelf is filled with history books. But kind of taking such a complex subject and laying it out episode
Yeah.
wise by not going into a preachy mode, by ensuring right level of balance between what you want to tell the viewers versus what the and something that's based on reality, putting out on paper, showing a different perspective, right? Showing a different perspective of when you're trying to move a big wheel or when you're trying to make a big change, what are the different levers that you would need to move? And I think that's what the movie showed. It was
Right.
not because what the whole world saw through Article 370 was, okay, one fine day the government of India woke up and it said, okay, now we are kind of bringing down the provisions of 370 by abrogating certain sections of it, right? And this is what we all saw. And we said, oh, fine, that was in the manifesto. They did it, right? All good. But what the movie showed is, okay, it was not about that. It's about a series of changes that had to be done, which were connected. Now you're at a risk of saying, okay, you're doing this because you would want to please the government of the day, because you just want to
Right.
glorify them. But
Mm-hmm.
if I'm just separating that fact and saying, is this all what they showed, was it not real or was it not fact based? I think it was fact based. Come
Mm-hmm.
what may, whomever it may please at the end of the day, they kind of laid it fact by fact and backed by solid performances. I think Yami Gautam, Priyamani were fab,
Yeah.
and ensuring that every scene, both or like either of them are in, they knew what they were playing. They were not playing to the gallery, they were just playing the character. And that's what worked for me for 370. Like, and the way it
Mm-hmm.
was shot as well, I think even though they shot the way they show Kashmir in winter, the way they show Kashmir pre 2014, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
this is what I really liked about Article 370, because I'm a big sucker for these history movies which especially which stay true to the paper, like not just
Right.
one side of the story, which try to show both sides of the story, wherein, okay, there are vulnerable people, a community in Kashmir who can be polarized. Yes, we agree to that. But we also see another side of people who are just doing their duty. They don't
Right.
have anything else. They're just doing their duty because they are ordered. And then
Right.
a change is supposed to happen in society. How do you trigger this change?
Right.
So, and I think that's why the movie worked for me. And I think thanks to Aditya Dhar for taking up such a complex subject. And what I know is they held on to its release for more than 6 months
Mm-hmm.
because the Supreme Court verdict hadn't been out until December.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the
Okay.
verdict had gone the
Right.
other way, in fact,
Mm-hmm.
then they would have reshot some part of the movie.
Mm. Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yes, because they delayed the movie release by 6 months, because
Mm.
December is when the Supreme Court actually gave its verdict that okay, what was done was not illegal, it should stand, and then they released the movie this year. Otherwise, the movie was
Right.
shot long back.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I think I watched the movie with Aditya Dhar. I think my expectations were just too high after Uri. I think it was very similar in terms of the episodes, how they have executed it. The intricacies of how they pulled it off were really an eye-opener for me. I didn't know, and I had a very healthy discussion with my dad on what actually transpired. So definitely a movie that was needed to be made, if not anything. But yeah, and Yami Gautam and Priyamani have done an amazing job at that as well. For me, number two is another Malayalam movie, which is Manjumal Boys.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I've spoken about this even in my last podcast. An amazing movie by these group of friends who go on a trip, and then there is a tragic incident that happens, and how they overcome that. I don't want to reveal too much for anyone who wants to watch it, but how Malayalam again movies again set the standard in how these rescue movies need to be shown.
Yeah.
It's not like an Akshay Kumar movie where it's all about just Akshay Kumar. It's
Yes.
also about the supporting characters. It's about the person who is being rescued as well. In fact, the most of the story revolves around that person and their inner inhibitions and how they come to the fore when they are in that you know
Right.
in that situation, and how a normal group of friends muster the courage to do something extraordinary. And just again, the way it's shot, the technical aspects of Malayalam movies is always amazing, and it just keeps you hooked to the movie, and you are like almost with them in that movie, trying to do the rescue. So I think purely on a movie watching experience and the chemistry that is shown between the friends, and how they have used personal shortcomings or fear inhibitions of those individuals within the storytelling was just purely amazing. So that comes at number two for me.
I haven't watched that movie. Again, probably it's on Disney Plus
Yes,
Hotstar, so
yeah,
it's out. I
yeah.
wanted to watch it. That was one of the things that I wanted to do over the weekend. But
Hmm.
yes, it still continues to be on my watch list because heard so many good things about the movie that this is like,
Okay.
don't miss this gem of a
Yes,
movie from Malayalam cinema.
absolutely. Yes, yes, for sure. All right. So, drum rolls. Which is your number one movie of 2024?
Yeah, I'll go with the popular choice. My favorite movie of 2024 is Lapata Ladies. Uh,
Perfect.
uh,
Awesome. Mm-hmm.
because I've spoken about it in one of our earlier podcasts, but just to reaffirm, right? The story. I think what worked for me was the story, the way they viewed it, and the way they show, like the way they even show what the world was pre cellular days,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what a simple confusion would actually lead up to, right? Taking that and not really trying to amplify things, but putting down things as they are,
Right.
right? What happens? Like, okay, there's a miss. You brought another bride home. Okay, you're in a situation now. How do you get out of it? Right? It's not really you're not really trying to show complex things. It's a simple confusion what has happened, and that's where the story
Yeah.
revolves. And
Uh-huh.
what I loved about the movie are these different small scenes which are so heartwarming. Like one of my favorite scenes is where all the women of the house are sitting down and like I think Pushpa Rani compliments the food that's made by her mother-in-law and her
What was that?
mother-in-law is
Kamal Fool? What was the name of that
Kamal Pool ki
vegetable?
sabzi or something.
Sabzi, huh?
Then she's like, is it a thing to compliment someone for making food? Like,
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's such a loud bang on the ear if you're
Yes.
really looking,
Yes.
because like you're like, okay, she's thanked you and you're asking her, is it something? So and she then even goes on to say, I've forgotten what was my favorite
Yeah.
sabzi or my favorite
Yeah.
vegetable. So for me, these scenes actually made up like made the movie because there are several such scenes, right?
Yeah.
Even the scene where they introduce my favorite character in the movie, the inspector. Amazing. I mean, the way they introduce his character, the way Ravi Kishan goes into it and he explains, and the way and he does not believe there's a larger justice system. He believes he's the justice, and people are like that in that part of India, right? So
Right.
these scenes, and even the scene where the ending credits, where the hero's friend is trying to communicate with her, but through him, right? So these are those small little scenes which kind of make these movies even more special, because no big names in the movie, no stars. Everyone is just a character playing himself or herself. They are stuck
Right.
in a situation, and every character is so nicely written and fleshed out. Like even the character of Manju Mai, you'll remember Manju Mai
Oh yeah, absolutely.
because she's a no nonsense person. She tells her, like, are
Yes.
you crazy? Is he going to pick you up? He's done with you. So, such nicely written characters all coming
Hmm.
together to play their roles. And you
Yeah.
remember it. Like, I think I saw that movie in mid April or beginning of May sometime. And it's still
Hmm.
fresh in my mind. The
Yeah.
reason being, I remember those scenes. I remember those dialogues, the characters. They're so fresh, so newly written, with a very nuanced message in it that they
Yeah,
would want to carry. So for
for
me,
sure.
hats off Kiran Rao and Amir Khan for bringing out this project. And again, I read somewhere that Amir Khan did audition for Ravi Kishan's role and he didn't go through. That's what he said. I'm so like, though I'm an Amir Khan
Glad.
fan,
Yeah.
I'm so glad it didn't go through, because
Yeah.
then the movie would have become about him playing that role
Yes. Yes. Yes.
and other star cast would have been like totally lost, right?
Yeah.
But now Ravi
Hmm.
Kishan, we've seen Ravi Kishan play those roles. It's not like he's playing it for the first time. So you're going
Yeah.
in like, okay, we know he's gonna make like he's gonna
Yes.
make it
Yeah.
a banger. So for me,
Absolutely.
Lapata Ladies remains my favorite movie. If anyone who's watching this podcast has not seen it, go watch that movie. It tells you like what was India pre-cellular times, how a simple
Right.
confusion leads to how a solid social message from a simple story can be effective. And I don't
Absolutely.
think it even worked when it released in theaters. It was
Yes. Yes. For
out
sure.
in OTT
Yes.
very soon.
Absolutely.
Again, not a massy movie because no star value, no one would spend their money going to a theater, but a solid
Right.
story packed with performances makes Lapata Ladies the number one.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think the only other person who I can think of playing the role of Ravi Kishan's would have been Pankaj Tripathi. But I
Hmm.
still feel that Ravi Kishan has totally nailed it. No one else could have played it as well, and definitely not Amir Khan. I think that happened with Dhobi Ghat. Everyone had such high expectations with Dhobi Ghat. It was
Yes.
not a commercial movie by any means, and yet because Amir Khan was there, the expectations were just too high for them to live up to it. It was just unrealistic. You're asking a bird to maybe run like Usain Bolt.
Yes.
That was not what it was meant for. So, and the only other mention that I want to make is of Chaya Kadam, who's played the Manju Mai.
Manju Bhai.
She's had a terrific year.
2024,
She's
yes.
there in Madgaon Express as well.
Yes.
She played a stellar role in Lapata Ladies, and she's also there in All We Imagine as Light,
Yes.
and she's garnered a lot of praise for her role in that movie as well. So, and very like strong woman characters that she plays. She's got that no nonsense look. So,
Yeah.
I think this is
Scared of her when she
kudos.
comes on the screen. You're like,
Absolutely, and
she's
don't
gonna
mess
yell
with
at you
me.
if you're gonna say something wrong now.
Exactly. So kudos to Chaya Kadam. This has been a fabulous year for her,
Yes.
and hopefully she continues in the next coming years. All
What
right.
about yours? Which is your top one and how?
So for me, I think I've mentioned this in the last podcast as well. It's definitely a male gun. So I still don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's a movie that just melted my heart in so many ways when I was watching it. The way the narration is, the storyline, and how they go back using flashback as a tool to connect with the audience. He's done it previously with 96, but again, this is so much better, so much more polished. The acting is it just melts you, Arvind Swamy and Karthi. So I think that has to be my number one movie. After watching the movie, we were just thinking about it. We were not sad, we were just in a very happy space, where as if something nice has happened to one of our family members and we are genuinely happy for them. And there is no it's not like the business has clicked. It's not like they have married someone. It's not like they have beaten cancer or some kind of a thing. It's a very simple plot. It's something that is so relatable. Everyone has seen something on similar lines in
Yeah.
their lives, and where a property is involved, you're attached to it, and you have to let go. And definitely I have seen it in my recent experience. So it was relatable at many levels, and the simplicity of it, the middle class values and families, and how they navigate through the ups and downs of lives. And then you just need that one glimmer of hope for you to get back on track. And that has been played by Karti. So very beautiful movie. I mean, even if I think of it, I just smile within myself. So that's the kind of movie that leaves an impression on a movie watcher, right? Male Gun is number one for me.
No, no, fully agree. I think especially both of their conversations, and especially the scene where they are drunk and
Yeah.
he reveals to him what he would name his child's name, and Arun
Yeah.
Swami chokes. I think that
God.
scene, I think, was
I
I'll
choked
remember
at
the
so
scene.
many points for that matter. Even the scene where he goes onto the stage and he, gives the gift to the bride, and the bride is
Yes,
like, "Oh, I want to wear it right now. Please
yes,
do
and
that."
it's such a
It's
nice.
and it's an elaborate scene. I think it goes for more than 5 to 7 minutes,
Yes,
just one scene. And I only realized it when I, went back and I was like, that was a pretty long scene. I did not even realize, and it was
yes.
so beautifully shot, and there were tears in my eyes for sure.
No,
Yeah.
no, no. I think Miyagan is those, and I think what you've generally seen. If I'm just recapping the list, right? If you just take at the top movies, I think both the movies what you look, I think the underlying element is still that they had a story to tell,
Yes.
right? They had a story to tell. All they did was told you a story, picked up characters who were there in the story. Good, bad, doesn't matter. They were in the story, and this movie was made based on that. And I think this kind of rounds up what 2024 has taught us, right? It's
Yes.
get the story right, everything is there for you.
Right.
You don't
Yeah.
need other things in the movie to make it look better. All you
Hmm.
need is a very good simple story that people can relate to, understand, and
Right.
good performances to back it up.
Right. And talking about our earlier conversation about recapping 2024 at a very high level, I think this year, I can talk for Hindi movies, which I closely follow more. This year, I think the decision making for producers and movie makers, whether it has to be an OTT release or it has to be a theatrical release, has peaked. I think
Yes.
now is the point they need to make a decision and plan accordingly, right?
Yeah.
Because even the OTT platforms have a say, and they know, that they have the bargaining chips, and
Yep.
they are in fact telling them what kind of movies to be made. Unfortunately, and even in the same roundtable that we were talking about, Shabana Azmi says the same thing, that she was very hopeful that OTTs would be this fresh lease of life for indie movies and movie makers to tell their own stories and not stick to formula movies. And
Yep.
yet they are falling prey to the same things.
Yes.
So even most of the OTT movies are all these crime based or suspense thrillers or murder mysteries. There is no breadth in the movies that are being made even on OTT. So I
Yes.
think it's, and this is like the inflection point this year where the movie makers need to understand what is a theater movie, what is an OTT movie, and make the movie accordingly, and invest time, energy, and money in that accordingly.
No, what you said makes sense because they would even need to moderate the content accordingly
Yeah.
because based on like couple of recommendations, I started watching Dispatch, that is
Mm-hmm.
Manoj Bajpayee's movie. I had a
Mm-hmm.
high hopes, but
Mm-hmm.
it fell flat. Like, I mean, the
Oh, it
reason
did.
not because the story is bad, the story is based on the 2G scam.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, of the 2D scam, how a journalist in Bombay unraveled it, etc. It's based on a
Right.
true story. But because OTT gives you certain liberties, you don't add sexuality for the sake of it.
Yeah.
And I think every third or fourth scene had some reference to some vulgar reference.
Mm-hmm.
I think abuse is okay if the character really wants to say it, you could abuse on screen, but there's
Right.
too much of skin show, which, according to me, for a movie like that, even if you hadn't done that, I think it would have been like in order to show
Mm-hmm.
the characters real, you should not really get into that zone, right? For me,
Mm-hmm.
that's where
Mm-hmm.
like a movie like Banda, where I thought it would be like a movie like Sirf Ek Banda Kafi Hai, where Manoj
Right.
Bajpayee show, etc. But here, in order to make his character seem, give a particular shade to his character, they put so much of vulgar scenes through the movie. To some extent, it's okay, but it gets too unnerving for you. They're like, okay, why are you diluting the core plot of the movie by showing me more about his character? Show me about the plot. So I think you're
Right.
at the right point. You said it right. It's at an inflection point. People would need, like, the filmmakers need to decide which they are going, plan their investments, plan their
Yeah.
story,
Yep.
and please, OTT platforms, don't try to moderate these stories. Like, these stories
Yes.
get
Yeah.
moderated, will go back to Hindi cinema of the 90s. We don't want to go back there.
Absolutely not. All right. That was amazing talking about all these wonderful movies, mix of Hindi, Tamil, Malayalam, There were some good Telugu movies that we watched as well. Kannada was fairly
Kannada was,
disappointing, I
yeah,
think. Yeah, I don't think I watched any good Kannada movies being from the same state. But if anyone has watched any good movies, please
yeah,
do
please
recommend.
recommend.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
UI was
I
supposed to
think
release this week, I believe, or
it's
it
going to be
released
next year.
ahead.
Amir Khan has made a video with Upendra on that one, promoting it. I think Amir Khan saw the trailer or something, and he's just putting his weight behind it. So
Okay.
hopefully, let's see. There are a few Rishabh Shetty movies that are going to be coming as well. So let's see how those
Fingers
goes.
crossed.
So talking of which, any other movies that you're looking forward to in 2025?
Honestly, I'm at that space now where I think I will know those big budget movies, but they may not be the best movies at the end of the year. So they'll be,
Right.
but out of the offbeat movie, one movie which I'm closely following is this a Malayalam movie called Rifle Club.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
The trailer's out on YouTube. Anurag Kashyap stars in it. Okay.
Wow.
He's not the
Okay.
lead role, but he's one of the main guys over there. And it talks
Uh-huh.
about a shooting club where people go out for hunting and how
Mm-hmm.
one day things go haywire over there. So the
Hmm.
trailer itself is non-linear, so watch it. So,
Wow. Okay.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so it's very intriguing, like typically experimental Malayalam cinema. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's not those big budget other movies which I'm waiting for, like be it like War 2 or
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm still hoping that Amir Khan bounces back with Champions, which is the remake of a
Mm-hmm.
Spanish film.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was called Champions, but now it's maybe renamed to Sitare Zameen Par
Mm. Yeah.
something.
Okay. Yes, for sure. All right. I think we are, as always, way over time. But as always, it's been a pleasure talking to you about all things movies. Hopefully, we continue this in 2025. But apart from that, yeah, if I don't talk to you, then Happy New Year to you.